look, anoraks, orbs, whatever they are. But I didn't mind. I didn't mind this episode. It was okay. It wasn't bad. For a finale, was it really a finale episode though? Something to come back on a bit later, I think. But I want to talk about the opening to this episode first, which is a very Doctor Who opening. Hello? Yes, good to have you here, Chris. Thank you very much. This is a very Doctor Who opening episode. It starts off in a quarry, doubling for a planet, and we've got two creatures. It felt very Sylvester McCoy, if I'm going to be honest. It was very sort of Time of the Rani. I don't know why. It just maybe a similar sort of setting. I don't know, but and then you had the acts talking to each other, and the speech that was going back and forth. I couldn't tell who that was for. The speech between the two of them, where I actually wrote part of it down because to me, I felt like I couldn't tell whether or not the speech was meant for the audience or for Chris Chibnall sort of shoring up himself. So the speech kind of went, the world is not to be understood, but built to be experienced. And then it goes on to say, show me that that our years of walking have not been wasted, and do only what we can do. I think that's just Chris Chibnall just sort of saying to himself, look, it's the finale for Doctor Who. Let's do only what we can do, which is what the people in charge of Doctor Who are doing. This episode, again, written by Chris Chibnall, directed by Jamie Childs, and guest starring Mark Addy. I want to talk a little bit about Jamie Childs here, because Jamie Childs, this is like his 8th directorial thing he's done. And 4 of those 8 were Doctor Who. I want to talk a little bit about it because I think his inexperience actually showed in this episode. That as a director, he needed somebody with him to help make this episode go a little bit better. There was no real adrenaline kick in this episode. There's some great moments here. There was some great stuff happening in this episode. Don't get me wrong, like 8 minutes in, we got the mark whereby bang, there's Tim Shaw. And I thought, yeah, great to have Tim Shaw back. And obviously, I'm going to talk about that character a little bit later on. But to get so far into the episode whereby the director is still making the choice to hide what is actually happening from the audience, and I actually marked the time because I actually went back through this episode just before I come on the live stream just to check the times. So it was 8 minutes when we found out that Tim Shaw was the villain for this piece. It was 35 minutes before we found out what the hell was going on. That's too long. You should have your setup for the episode done in 10 minutes. If you're 10 minutes into the story, into a 45-minute, 50-minute story, 10, 15 minutes in, that's where the audience should really know what is going on, what the consequences are. That's really where it should be. 35 minutes is way too long to still be going, what's happening. It's okay for the characters not to know, but really there was no sense of tension or danger from the part of the audience because it took 35 minutes before you realised what the hell was happening. And that comes down to the inexperience of the director more than anything else, because the director should have said, no, we're going to put this here just so that we can tell this story in this way. That's what the director's job is to tell the story in his style. And again, it's not a massive criticism of Jamie Childs. He's done a great job with pretty much everything that he's directed in the series so far, but it's a little bit of inexperience on his part here to only be able to not see the story aside from the script. To have the script here and to go, right, then the best way to tell this is to do this. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't awful, but it was a little bit too long into the show before the audience found out what the consequences were. And then when we do get to the consequences, I'm not really sure what the motivation was. So I've actually written down what Tim Shaw's actual plan was, and it says here the objective of the stanza was not to hold people, but to hold civilizations. To what end? Why? I mean, if you've got an idea as to why that's even a plan, why that's even a thing, I would like to know. But that doesn't seem to be much of a motivation. He wants to hold civilizations. What the hell does that mean? So I'm still a little bit clueless as to exactly what Tim Shaw's goals are. Also, who the hell was Tim Shaw talking to? Because the Doctor was running down the corridor, around the corner, gone. Like, Tim Shaw was just like talking to himself about all these sort of things. It's not the goal of the stanza to do this. It's not the goal of the stanza. The Doctor's gone. The Tim Shaw's just standing there talking to himself. But again, I do like the fact that he's back. Okay, let's get into a little bit of Tim Shaw talk here. I really hadn't she tapped in with a net phone? Not at that point. No, she didn't. No, it was only afterwards she did it with the Sonic when she went to talk to him. Yeah, so Tim Shaw was just rattling onto himself. And again, it was something I checked. We went back and looked. He was just like, he's talking to the wall. Yeah, so I like the fact that Tim Shaw's back. I wish that his purpose was a little bit more spelled out. The Sonic, shocker. Yeah, I know. Yeah, more Sonic wearing. I like the fact that he didn't die. I like the fact that Tim Shaw has been put on ice. That's good. If you've got a good villain, don't kill him off. It's been a mistake that lots of shows, including superhero movies, have done it, whereby they've got a really good villain and end up killing them off at the end of the movie or the show, and it's not the right thing to do. The fact that you've got this guy and he's now put on ice, he can come back at any point now. Over the next 30 years, he can come back. That's great. He can evolve, he can mutate, there's lots and lots of stuff you can do with this guy now. So yeah, I'm really, really happy about that. Mark Addy in this episode. Why was he there? Well, did he serve a purpose? If you know what sort of purpose he served, because I felt like this was a waste of a guest character and a guest actor. I like seeing him on screen. I think he's great. I always enjoy seeing him on screen. He just didn't really have that much of a purpose in this episode, did he? What was his character's name? Paliaki or something like that. His name was. His job was to shoot robots. Yeah, but again, Graham could have done that. And again, it goes. I think this comes back to what I was saying about Jamie Childs with his inexperience, because we had the so-called action scene where they duck in slow motion, and it was all very there. It was all. Jamie Childs just doesn't know how to direct action. He just doesn't, and that's not no fault of his own. He's still learning, which means that this is a good starting point for him. But I don't think this did a great deal for. It sucked the adrenaline out of the episode, really. On that point as well, the music in this episode let this episode down in heaps. it was okay for what it was, but it was just, it felt more like filler music as opposed to actually being. There was no real action beat. There was no real action theme. There was no real action vibe. I guess he was told to write something for Thrill, but it was just, we had a rapid sort of tap in, of this sort of thing when tension was supposed to be building, but there was no real action theme, and I think that's a real problem with. I mentioned before about them not having the Doctor's, I Am the Doctor theme. I felt like that was a real problem. Why didn't they ever use the Doctor Who theme for the action stuff? Because it's a pretty action theme, right? I mean, they used it like at the start of the season, but it's always bugged me that they've never used the Doctor Who theme for the Doctor. Like, that middle eight is great for the sort of like big. It would be like having the Indiana Jones theme not be used in an Indiana Jones movie. So I don't understand that, but to have that middle eight is a glorious piece of music. And I don't understand why they don't have that be the Doctor theme. That's what we've got here. Are we sure he's actually directing by himself? The interaction between Ryan and Graham was very chibnall. That's what he's good at. Yeah, I would say Jamie Charles is actually doing it by himself. I wouldn't have said that. I mean, he's probably been talking with. They probably had a sit down and had a chat, because normally when you go to make something like that, you'll normally have a meeting with the people with a sit down with the script reading with everyone, and the director's probably sitting there making notes and everything. Going through the script and just sort of underlining stuff and just writing their own sort of, and then talking with Chris Chibnall about what's happening. But as for on the day, it was probably just Jamie Childs. Now we did get some good moments with Ryan and Graham. We finally got a fist bump, which is great. I really liked Graham in this episode. I really did. The whole bit whereby after they found out that it was Tim Shaw, that whole dark moment whereby Graham just turns dark. That was a lovely little moment. And they start walking through the quarry, and he turns to the Doctor and says, "Look, you lot go about your business. I need to talk to the Doctor." And the Doctor's there, like, and he's just saying stuff like, I'm going to kill Tim Shaw, right? You know I'm going to kill that monster. And the Doctor's like, no, you're not. And Graham's like, no, Doc, really, I'm going to kill him. And she's like, well, if you do, you know better than he is. And he's like, I don't give a shit. And I really liked that moment. Like, you could see sort of almost the contempt in the eyes of the Doctor. But at the same time, you could also see the determination in the eyes of Graham. And he was doing it in such a way whereby the two were having a conversation about it. And you just felt like, I think most people would have sided with Graham on that. I think most people would have said, look, it's because of the Doctor's fault. It's the Doctor's fault that Tim Shaw got away. And I think that a lot of people would have sided with Graham in that instance and gone, I think the Doctor's wrong here. But it was such a wonderful little moment that, and we've got to talk about it as well. It gets into the whole bit whereby he's taking down the robots, he's taking down all these things, making his way through the shrine, or supposedly the shrine. It looked like a factory, didn't look very shrine-ish to me. But he takes them all down. Mark Addy's character hands him the detonator. The door is right there. You can see the sparks. The door comes open. He hits the button, and it's yippee-ki-yay. I mean, come on. I mean, what? That was a brilliant little moment. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Yeah, I thought that was a really great moment in this episode. Nice to have a little pop culture reference there coming from Graham. And I thought his stuff with Ryan was great as well. I would have just no. What they could have done, you would have been happy for him to have bleeped the correct line. I think what I would have done, again, this is going back to what I was saying about Jamie Charles' inexperience. I would have put the line in, but what I would have done is had a lot of gunfire. So instead of bleeping the line, so you just have this noise over the top of it, this, or still have these explosions, just something so that he said it, but you didn't hear it. So similar sort of thing. But that's what I would have done. It would have been like a power conduit exploding or something like that. Just to cover over the line, just to fudge over it. But yeah, I would have absolutely gone. I would pull the trigger on that one. The moment between him and Ryan where those two are kind of sort of working it out as to what to do, and they're getting those people out of the pods, and they're having these moments where they're talking about Grace, and lovely little stuff, nice little things going on. Problem is, once again, Yaz gets backpedaled, and at this point she's disappeared into the furniture. 10 episodes in, that character can be taken out of the series, and we'll never remember her. I'm trying to think of sort of the companions over the years from all the series, from all the classics, and I'm trying to think of a character that's actually blended more into the woodwork than and I can't think of because all of them, like Nisa, Tegan, Adric, Yazoo, is that another character? Yeah, exactly. I mean, the guest characters are standing out more than she is. But I'm trying to think of somebody. Victoria with the second Doctor. Jamie. I mean, like Barbara, Susan. They all. Ian, they all really stand out in their own ways. Yaz is really the first character that's really part of a conglomeration in the TARDIS, and she's really kind of. I think I think Melanie is probably the last time this sort of thing happened, whereby the character wasn't behaving like the character. Less than Mickey. Well, Mickey was great, particularly when he went to the alternate world and you had Ricky and Mickey. So she was. I would put her like Mel's. Definitely, the sort of 6th and the 7th Doctor, where she's supposed to be this techno computer programmer, and we never saw it, and it was just Bonnie Langford being a scream queen. At least you can remember Bonnie Langford for that. What are you going to remember? What are you going to remember Yaz for? Like, give me a memorable moment that I'm going to remember Yaz for, a standout moment, because I will never forget, Donna Noble from Fires of Pompeii. That scene in Fires of Pompeii where she's begging the Doctor to help somebody. I will never forget that moment. Same with Billy Piper with Rose, where she gets pulled into the alternate dimension. Same thing. Hello, it's Lenny. The power of a spearhead experiment. Hello. So yeah, I have trouble finding something to latch onto for Yaz. I really do have problems with his character, and this episode just really didn't help at all. This episode she was kind of just shadowing the Doctor. She seems to be smart. She seems to be some sort of smart individual, but like when you can write characters like Ryan and Graham, and I don't get why Yaz gets disappears into the wallpaper like that. The other thing as well that I thought was odd in this episode, I mentioned how the shrine actually looked like the interior of a factory. the actual setup of this episode, which is supposed to be like I like the look of the spaceships in this episode. I like the look of those. You're leaking for Chori. I'm guessing you mean Jory, but okay. Couldn't even see her ass in those tight jeans this week. Yeah. I say balance out of the PC agenda. Yeah. But I think, like, I like just the setup with the spaceships and the environment scene, the fact that you had all these crashed spaceships everywhere, and it looked really good. But then you got inside, and it was just like everything looked like a hangar. It didn't look like sort of future tech. It just looked like crumbling tech, I suppose. Which I didn't mind. I actually liked the big sort of flip over screen that they were using. And I liked the little sort of thing that was just rocking back and forth on the desk. But when it got into the other technology, the stuff that was supposed to be this sort of super advanced, the X technology, then the interior did not mirror the exterior. And it's kind of incompatible. And I think they should have put a bit more work into it, considering it was the series finale and all. The one thing you can say about this series is the outside cinematography has been fantastic. Absolutely. Oh, look, there's been plenty of things about this series where there have been plenty of pluses, for sure. I'm going to get on to talk about the series overall in a little bit. But like, if we just look at this episode here with the actual art direction of this episode, I'm kind of a bit disappointed at sort of the laziness of this episode. Because, like I said, the interior, they could have filmed that anywhere. The interior of what's supposed to be the Ux shrine, it just looked like the interior of a factory. It just looked like any industrial complex that you could name, with blue and amber lighting just shining up on the walls. I did like the sort of pump things that were going up and down behind Tim Shaw on that platform, but that was really just sort of one sort of insert. The interior was a bit Red Dwarf Diesel decks, yeah, which was just filmed in a electrical power plant. So yeah, I wish they had done a little bit of art direction there. Also, there's the props as well. So we got the reused robot props, which were from Ghost Monument. But also, I'm getting a bit tired of seeing the same sort of prop whereby it's a hand scanner, and basically what it is a bit of lump of plastic that's been carved out, so they can just put an iPhone in there, so it's just playing some sort of graphic. I wish they'd actually go a little bit further and actually do some real design, because I've seen it done numerous times now. We've had it way back when River Song had her scanner. So yeah, and it's the same sort of thing. They just take an iPhone and they just slot it into a lump of plastic, and that's supposed to be a new device. I wish they'd actually take the time to actually build something and create something. This episode also, the tricorder pisses all over that and Quantum Leap one. Thank you very much. Yeah, my tricorder is right here. All the stuff on it. Yeah, it is nice. Yeah, this episode actually referenced two other stories as well. Referenced the Stone Earth and Boomtown, which was quite an odd reference. I don't know why they actually referenced Boomtown in this. It's quite far away from this episode. The Stone Earth, on the other hand, I felt like that's where this episode was going. But I'm not so sure, again, I don't understand the motivations of Tim Shaw to steal the Earth. I know he wanted to steal it to punish the planet, but actually his goal for stealing planets in the first place is a little bit loose. So yeah, we got some nice stuff in here. We got the fist bump from Graham and Ryan, where they actually work together as a team. So Graham is done now. So I'm happy that Graham has made it through this series. but Graham is done. And any further progression on Graham's partner will be great. I don't want Graham to leave. I think Graham's the best part of this show. But it does feel like, things have been completed now. Ryan's still growing, which is great, and he's actually learning stuff. I like the fact that Ryan actually picked up one of the pads off the console and went, "Hey, let's have a look, see what this does." He starts playing around with it and goes, "Hey, take a look at that." And again, Yaz is just standing there in the background, just like. I mean, I don't know who that's on. Whether it's the actor, the director, I don't know. But could have been worse. I hatched a baby from. Oh yeah. No, don't get me wrong. This episode had plenty of in the pluses columns. Plenty. The worst thing about this episode was definitely the lack of action or badly directed action, I should say, and the fact that the music didn't hit the same themes. The sniper bots. The doctor saying always take precautions, and the doctor actually going back on what she actually said before, whereby she's handing out all the bombs and everything. I like the fact that it's a bit of a grey area, where the doctor is like, I morally know what's centered, and if I say it's okay to do something, then it's okay. And the fact that he was saying to Ryan, the reason why I told you not to do that was because you were new and I needed to find out exactly what sort of person you were. I liked all that sort of stuff. It's just, like I said, it took 35 minutes to get into the episode before we found out what was actually happening. And 35 minutes into an episode before you actually work out what the hell the plot is a bit too long. I wish we got that a little bit sooner. But overall, though, this episode, it done pretty well. This is probably the best one Chris Chibnall's ever written, for sure. And when it comes to Chris Chibnall writing episodes of Doctor Who, this was better than, what was it, Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, I think was probably the best one before this, really. So, yeah. I'm really happy that they kept Tim Shaw alive. I thought, great moments between Graham, great moments between Ryan. The Doctor herself, how was she done in this episode? Okay, bit of sonic waving, to be expected. Jodie and her sonic love. I thought she done pretty well. There were certain things that I thought. Nice little touches, like where she runs into the TARDIS and does the clap to knock the lights on. She's definitely growing. She still hasn't really had her big Doctor moment, where she's really sort of she's shown her nasty side. Then I guess shown her teeth. This Doctor's really been sort of about showing a lot of compassion, and we really still haven't had. We had a couple of slight touches of it here or there. Like, for example, I thought the one with the witches, whereby it was her and Alan Cummings, that scene where we had the switch of power. I thought that was a beautifully done scene, and between two good actors as well. So I thought that was really good. But I don't think we've had this real sort of. We haven't had the no moment, right? The sort of. Where the Ninth Doctor is talking to the Daleks and he's just like, no, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm sure Jodie and Sonic love is a completely different field of entertainment. It probably is, yes. It's probably available on certain internet channels. But I think she's done pretty well. I think she did pretty well in this episode. It does still feel like she's chaperoning people around, right? And I don't know if that's how they intend to carry on going with the show. I mean, I'm trying to look back on things like the William Hartnell years, right? And I'm thinking of Doctor Who and the Daleks and stuff like that, and how other people would make the decisions and go off. I'm trying to compare the companions and Doctor's relationship to that, because when they did that episode where Ian was like all about the fluidic link, and he was like, we have to get that fixed so we can get the TARDIS and get out of here, and he would go off by himself. It is really that sort of relationship, but I think the problem with that is that the Doctor's matured from there, and since 9, 10, 11, even 7, 7, 6, it's been much more of a the Doctor's been the leader then, the one that's pushed forward and drives the story forward. Whereas I think what they've done here is they've tried to take Jodie and put Jodie back to the William Hartnell type of Doctor, and I'm not sure that's working for her. And I think that I, as much as I enjoyed the William Hartnell shows, which, and I absolutely do, I don't think it's. I don't think you can evolve the character and then decide to take it back. I think once you've made that change to the character, you just got to keep moving forward. And I think that it's that it's a bit of a mistake to actually try to go back and rehash stuff. In The Witchfinders, didn't Yaz choose to go off to find the girl? Although one moment in the series is not a lot. It's. Yeah, I mean, like I said, with Yaz is disappearing into the wallpaper. She's just absorbed. Don't bring back Peter Kay, for Christ's sake. No, but she is absolutely been absorbed into the wallpaper, and it's a shame, because I'm pretty sure Mandip Gill doesn't want that from the character. I'm pretty sure that nobody wants that from the character. I'm pretty sure the people working on the show don't want that from the character. It's just the way it seemed to have worked out. But as for I mean, look, I think it's pretty much unanimous that the best character in the show right now is Graham. I think that's pretty unanimous. I don't think anybody's really going to disagree with that opinion. I think if you were going to do it in a list, it would be Graham, Ryan, the Doctor, Yaz, which is a bit shocking, I think, because I think the Doctor should be the top villain, given whose show it is. But where do you go from here now? How do you switch this dynamic around? How do you get the Doctor to forefront her own show? She's a pretty girl and a good actress, but she's been given nothing really. She hasn't been given anything, and everybody was. I think everybody was taken aback a little bit by just how little she had with Demons of the Punjab, because it was supposed to be looking at her grandparents and her family, and the fact that her story was then sidetracked because I think one of the problems with this series overall, and let's get into talking about the series overall, shall we? The 10 episodes that we've had, there have been sci-fi stories written in this series, in this series of Doctor Who, whereby you can pull the sci-fi out of it, take all the sci-fi elements out of it, and it'll still work as a story. I'm talking about Rosa. I'm talking about Demons of the Punjab. Those sci-fi elements you can still rip out, and it won't affect the story any. Like Demons of the Punjab, nothing would have happened if the Doctor hadn't arrived. Everything would have played out exactly the same, which still makes for a brilliant story. And the fact that you have these sci-fi elements injected into the story, as of the characters of the Doctor, Graham, Ryan, and all that, they just observe us the events. But if you took those out of it, those events would have still happened 100%. And the same sort of thing with Rosa. If you took the sci-fi elements out of it, obviously it's based on a true story, so naturally those events would have happened. And I think with the ones whereby you end up with Sananga Conundrum, whereby it was all about the sci-fi, and it didn't have those elements in it. They were weaker episodes, much weaker episodes. I mean, I've got all the ratings that I've got written down for the entire series, from the first episode right the way through, and if I'm looking at here, The Woman Who Fell to Earth, 6.5 I gave that. 6.5 for an episode which was introducing the Doctor and Tim Shaw. And Who Church, yeah. Broad Who. A lot of Broadchurch actors in this series. The Woman Who Fell to Earth, I give it a 6.5. Ghost Monument was a 6. Again, Ghost Monument was one whereby it was supposed to be a race, and it's supposed to have had consequences, and the planet was supposed to be deadly, but really nothing deadly really happened. Everybody made it out alive. It was very underserved. It looked spectacular, as with many of the episodes for Doctor Who this season, but it was just underserved. It was just we didn't really. I'm wondering whether or not that's part of the BBC. Actually, I'm wondering whether or not that's more of a BBC thing as opposed to the people making Doctor Who kind of thing. Because I'm wondering whether or not the BBC have actually put pressure on to say, look, limit the amount of death, limit the amount of violence, limit the amount of that you can have in the show. So I'm wondering whether or not they've tried to write this episode to kind of make up for what it can't do. Killer duvets, yes, the bed sheets from hell. So then we had that. Then we had Rosa, which, again, the sci-fi bad guy for Rosa there was as I call him, Spacist the Racist. Then we had, Arachnids in the UK, which was really not a good episode. I'm just not my real name. Hello. I'm disappointed in the lack of series arcs and references to previous series. We did again. As I said earlier, we had a reference to the Stolen Earth and Boomtown in this episode, in tonight's episode. So I'm not really worried about story arcs, and I'll tell you why I'm not worried about story arcs is that I like the fact that they had an opportunity to bring in a lot of new villains, and they ballsed it up. Let's be honest here. They ballsed up. The main new villain is Tim Shaw. I'm really happy that he's still around. That's great. But they had an opportunity to really bring in some stuff, and it kind of the series overall didn't quite get there. Arachnids in the UK, like I said, that was kind of a that I didn't give that a high score. I give that a 6. That was really a lackluster episode, wasn't it? Then we've got the Sananga Conundrum with the Pating. Oh dear. Which was just the Gremlin on a Plane episode, right? I mean, that's what it was. It's not. Let's call it what it was. This Gremlin attacks a spaceship and starts destroying stuff, and you can't get rid of it. You can't kill it. And it was okay. And then we had Demons of the Punjab, which is my highest rated episode of the series, which I give an 8.5. Because I just thought that episode was brilliant. It had some dead space in it, here or there, but aside from that, I thought Demons of the Punjab was the best thing they've done all season. I quite enjoyed Arachnids. The problem was that it was very much an 80s story. Arachnids in the UK was very much an 80s story. It was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Spiders. And the resolve to the episode was really, really bad. Like, we're just going to lock these spiders up. That's what we're going to do. We're going to lock them in here, and that's it. We're going to close the door. And it seemed like the spiders were going to die naturally anyway. So it was kind of an in the forest of the night kind of thing. And it was these have been genetically modified spiders that eat in nuclear waste and are mutating, and it was the Donald Trump allegory that was used in the episode was you didn't need any of it. You could have changed the entire setting. You could have changed the golf course, the hotel, all that sort of stuff. You could have got rid of all of that, and nothing would have changed. Nothing would have changed in the episode at all. So yeah, where were we? Teams of the Punjab, Kablam 7. Little bit of a fun run around. Lee Mack not really being used to his best of his abilities. Still interesting enough, but Kablam kind of taking a pot shot at Amazon, I suppose, and trying to say that, hey, look, it's not the system's fault, it's how you use it. I give that a 7. That was a nice little sort of. It was a nice little kind of episode, I think, but it felt short on the whole sort of domestic terrorism aspect of it, right? It really didn't. The character of that was blowing stuff up, sending the robots with the killer bubble wrap. That really didn't work for me, because why wouldn't you have just blown up all the robots, right? Why wouldn't you have just told the robots not to deliver the items? Why did anything have to explode? It was a kind of a bit of a plot oversight for Kablam, really, at the end. Then we get the Witchfinders. Witchfinders is my favourite episode of this season. Loved Witchfinders. I thought Alan Cummings stole the show in that episode. Stole the series. I mean, when Alan Cummings walks into that room and he was giving it, I'm the Satan's greatest foe and all this stuff, and he was just chewing up the scenery. I just thought Alan Cummings was absolutely the best thing that happened to this series. So yeah, loved the episode Witchfinders. Again, a couple of plot holes in that episode, knocking them out and then saying 2 minutes later, saying, right, well, I'm going to kill you now. I was like, you should have killed them while they were unconscious, shouldn't you? But still, I mean, I actually give Witchfinders my highest rating, which was a 9. And again, I know there are faults with that episode, but it was just it just felt so good that they could pick their feet up and just have fun. Just have a real run-around fun episode of Doctor Who with some monsters just coming out of the woodwork, some zombie alien things coming up from the ground, the dead being possessed. Like I said, it reminded me of some of my favourite episodes of Doctor Who. And I get that it's not for everybody, but for me, episodes like Tooth and Claw and Quiet Dead, those sorts of things, they really are my favourite episodes of Doctor Who. And Witchfinders just happen to fall straight into that category. Then we got It Takes You Away. Oh, I wish they were taken away. Oh, God. I thoroughly don't like that episode. I thoroughly don't like it. Just where do you go with that episode? No. Oh, and the frog puppet. Oh, Jesus. I'd actually blanked that from my brain. Yeah, I give that a 4. That wasn't a good episode. I didn't like that at all. So much stalling, so much. Come on, make something happen. And then we get to tonight's episode. And tonight's episode, I thought was a reasonable pace. Very few things let it down. I've scored this as an 8. I did enjoy it to that point whereby I thought this episode was. I was gonna give it a little bit more, but like I said, the action beats in this didn't work for me, and the music didn't work for me. Those two things, I marked it down for that, and then so I give it an 8 out of 10, which means that overall I have given this entire series of Doctor Who a 69 out of 100. Oh, that's not a great score, is it? I mean, that still puts it in the good, you know, but that's a bit of an underachiever there. I think last week's episode was for me the biggest letdown. Don't get me wrong, they did some interesting stuff last week, but it was a bit too weird, a bit too bizarre, and a little bit. I wish I could give it a. I wish I could give it a better score, but I'm trying to weigh up the positives and the negatives of this show as best as I can, and I think I've scored it fairly. I think I've scored this show as best as I can score it with being fair-handed, giving the praise for all the positives, but not letting it get away with the negatives. And I think 69 out of 100. There's a 40-point deficit there. 41 points. No, what am I on about? 31 points. And again, I nearly was a little bit too critical of it. An 8.5 from me. It's great score if you're Bill and Ted. Yeah. Like I said, it's an 8.5. Can I give it 8.5? Again, I deducted 1 point for the way it was directed, and I deducted another point for the musical cues. I think if you rescored it, I think if you rescored tonight's episode with some of the 10th Doctor music, I think you would have ended up with a far more blood pumping, adrenaline kicking, actiony type of episode. But I think that it needs a little bit of a re-edit. And it does definitely need that dun 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 dun, that sort of da 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 da. It definitely was missing that so much. So 69 out of 100. What does that equate as? Because if I'm working this out, 16. It's about 3.5. Isn't it? It's about 3.5 out of 5, isn't it? That's what it comes to. 3.5 out of 5. It still puts it in the good overall. Still puts it in the good category, but it's not great. It's not awful, for sure. And we've got the New Year's Day episode to look forward to, which I still think is a mistake. Should never have lost the Christmas spot. I give it half a point because it whizzed by, and I enjoyed it here. I'll say that the episode's pace was good. I will say that. I will say that the episode's pace was decent, but again, it took too long to get round to actually what the episode was about. That's my biggest problem was that. It took far too long to actually find out what the bloody hell was happening. If that had happened further earlier into the episode, then you'd have the audience would have a good idea of consequence. It would be like, right, they have to do this because if they don't do it, that's going to happen. And so I think it just cut the legs off the tension. And I think that's my biggest problem with this episode, really. But I still give it an 8 out of 10. It's up there with Rosa. It's up there with Demons of the Punjab and Witchfinders. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we've got 4 cracking episodes, or decent episodes, or great episodes of Doctor Who for this season. But 6 of them have dragged it down a little bit. So yeah, overall then this series gets a 3.5 out of 5. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it. I don't think there's really a whole hell of a lot more to talk about with this episode. Yeah, it was as for a finale, how does this look compared to the other finales? The fact that they brought back Tim Shaw was a good thing. But how does this compare to like Partner the Ways, to all the Big Bang, all the other finales that we've had to Doctor Who? I think this is going to be. I think this is going to be probably my least favorite finale by comparison. No, I don't know. No, because Series 8 was pretty bad. Yeah, no, this is definitely better than Capaldi's first season finale. Not by a huge amount. But if I'm looking at it, if I'm gonna compare it to the others, I'd have to really sit down and think about it. I have to really sort of think about what it is that where I would put this actually in terms of placement of finales. It was decent. It was an enjoyable episode. It was a good episode. I'm I'm knocking myself down here with this, but no, it was a very enjoyable episode of Doctor Who. I'd have to give it some more thought as to what sort of a finale where I would place it. So I'm going to leave that there. You definitely enjoyed the streams afterwards. Glad to be of service. Next week, I am going to be doing something with Doctor Who next week, even though there's no show anymore. So next Sunday, I'm going to make it a regular thing. Next Sunday at 8 p.m, we'll be doing something Doctor Who-ish. I haven't actually pieced it together yet, but it will be a live stream at 8 p.m. next Sunday, and hopefully then, if you can join me, then that would be great. But until next time, I shall see you all, and thank you for joining me in the live chat.